How you doing, everybody? Hey, I just wanted to make this quick video because yesterday I was interviewed by one of my mentors, Ron LeGrand, on his live real estate simulcast, and the topic that we were supposed to be talking about on that quick 15-minute interview was just some common pitfalls that thinker brains like myself have a tendency to fall into when you are first starting in your business. And I wanted to make this video because unfortunately, through that course of that conversation with my mentor there, we only got to about one of the three bullet points, and so unfortunately kind of left the audience hanging before he got to or before he had to move on to his next guest. So I just wanted to record this and kind of give you guys some information and some pitfalls because a few people have asked about it. So the first thing that we talked about, the biggest challenge that I had when I first started in the business was just an overall fear of the phone. There's in my experience, lots of thinker brains come into this business and they are shy, they're introverted, and I was really no different. So, one thing that really helped me, and I shared this in that interview yesterday, was one of the things that you should be doing is taking your scripts and you should be practicing and reading those things out loud. You have got to get to the point to where, especially if you're somebody where scripts do not come naturally, you have got to give your brain the ability to hear these words come out of your mouth and really internalize them, because what's going to happen is your brain's going to be giving you feedback. And for most of us, if you don't have experience reading scripts before, or you've never been in a position like customer service or anything like that where you've had to use scripts, it's usually pretty unnatural for most of us, right? So the best thing to do is read those scripts out loud. And I would lock myself in a room where nobody else was around because I didn't want anybody else to hear me. And if that's you, that's fine. But you've got to give your brain the ability and the time to start hearing these words come out of your mouth, because it's going to start to give you some feedback. And it's going to tell you things like, ooh, like for me, it was, Todd, that does not sound natural. That does not sound like you. You sound like an idiot. You sound horrible. And most of us have this really bad self-talk going on in our brain. And you have to get yourself past that. You have to give yourself time to hear those words, because eventually what happens is your brain is going to start to normalize those words, and the more it hears those words come out of your mouth, the more it starts to say, okay, well, this is normal, this is what we're supposed to be doing, right? And it takes time for that to happen. It takes rehearsal. So think of it like you're an actor and you were just given a screenplay, or you're just given the words for your part. If you tried to show up on stage in front of the director without rehearsing your lines, chances are you'd probably do a pretty poor job and the director would kick you off of the stage. It's really no different here when we're dealing with these scripts and we're talking to sellers. If this is the first time you've done it before, I really wouldn't recommend that you just hop on the phone right away cold turkey. You've got to practice these scripts out loud. So if that's role playing with somebody, if that's role playing with your coach, whatever you're doing, or just reading the scripts out loud and making sure that, I mean, that is really the key, making sure that you are practicing the scripts out loud. And that I learned that the hard way. When I first started practicing the scripts, I was just reading them internally, and I thought I got to the point to where it was like, okay, this is pretty good. And then I had my first couple of calls and they were absolute train wrecks. Why? Well, because the words hadn't come out of my mouth yet. And so as I'm talking to the sellers, my brain's giving me this feedback like, Todd, that doesn't sound like you. That didn't sound like how you rehearsed it in your head, right? So you don't want to fall into that trap. So make sure that you are rehearsing, and it's probably going to take a lot of you thinker brains, or a lot of you that have that fear of the phone. It's going to take hours of practice. It's going to take a lot of internalizing and hearing those words come out of your mouth. So don't be afraid to set aside time to do that. All right. The other trap that you can fall into, or the kind of the second point I wanted to talk about, is being a slave to what all of us know as analysis paralysis. Now, if especially if you have a thinker brain like me, I mean, I was a former engineer, right? So you don't need to know everything to be able to take the next step. In fact, one of the things I will tell you, a good coach is not going to shower you with all of the information. They're going to give you just in time information. Why? Because anytime you get sprayed with a fire hose of information, it leads to inactivity. You're trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do next? Where am I going to go next? And that is not a place that you want to be. So as a coach, I can tell you when I'm coaching people, I'm trying to give them just enough information to get over the hurdle right in front of them. Okay, so think of yourself, if you're a hurdler and you're running the I don't know, the 100-meter hurdles, or I don't know if it's 100-yard hurdles, whatever it is, right? And let's say that there's you got a hurdle every 10 meters. Well, if you're thinking about the hurdle, the ninth hurdle in the race, you're going to fall flat on your face at the first or the second hurdle, right? You need to be focusing on what's in front of you. So you take a few steps, and then we help you get over hurdle number one. You take a few more steps, you get over hurdle number two. That's how successful businesses are run. That's how that's the way to stay focused. Let's put it that way. That's the way to really move forward in the business, so you don't get overwhelmed. You don't need to know step Z to be able to complete step A, right? You just don't need that. In fact, that's a detriment if you're sitting back thinking, I need to know everything before I can take the first step. It's just an excuse to not get started, right? So resist that urge to fall into that analysis paralysis trap. Okay. And I know it can be hard sometimes. Trust me, I've been there. But take the step. Focus on what is the one thing that I need to do right now to move my business forward, and complete that step. And then if you're not sure what to do next, ask your coach. Figure out what is the next step. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, and I think that this is somewhat of an entrepreneurial trait, maybe not just a thinker brain trait, but us thinker brains tend to have it pretty bad. I know I did, and honestly, I still do. And that is the shiny nickel syndrome, or the shiny object syndrome, and leaving a bunch of half-built bridges. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean, you have the ability to get distracted very easily. Things come into your life, or new opportunities, new business opportunities, especially as entrepreneurs, as business owners. There's always the new shiny way to do this or that, or there's the new shiny way to make money. That is always, always, always going to exist. And I didn't start to become successful until I put the blinders on and decided, okay, this is how I'm going to make money in real estate. I'm going to take the action steps that I need to get my pretty house business up and running. And yeah, can I make money in commercial real estate? Absolutely. Can I make money flipping houses, wholesaling houses? Can I make money any other way? Absolutely. Any and all those things work, but it takes time to learn the different crafts. And what most people do, including myself, because I was the guy that was a habitual learner. I was a constant seminar junkie, and I would buy a whole bunch of different courses, some of which are actually still in the cellophane right up here on my shelf. So I am absolutely guilty of that. But if you're the person that has all these half-built bridges, where the analogy that I'll give you is that, let's say you're on one side of the riverbank, and that's where you are today, and you want to get to the other side of the river because that represents whatever it is for you. If it's financial freedom, if it's more time with your family, just being able to travel more, whatever that is, you have got to build a bridge to get over to the other side, right? And so you start, taking step one, step two, step three, and you start to build this bridge. And then that shiny object comes into your life, and you get distracted, and you go back to the shore, and you're like, okay, I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to go down the commercial real estate route. I'm going to go down this route, and you start to build that bridge across the river. and then something new and shiny comes along, and it's like, oh, okay, let's go back and let's start a new bridge. And you never finish any of the bridges that you get started. Guilty. Okay. So it wasn't until I said, I am going to do pretty house deals. I am going to get my business systems and my structure set up and so that I know how to do it well. And then after that, then I could go focus on something else. But it wasn't until I got that system and that structure set up and I was doing deals consistently was I okay, moving on and focusing on something else. So I'm going to recommend that you focus on one thing. And a really good book for that is Gary Keller's The One Thing. I would recommend that you read that because it's a phenomenal, phenomenal book. So sorry guys if you watched my interview yesterday and you didn't get all of those three things. So I wanted to put this out to give that to you. And I will see you guys here at some point in the future. Take care.